on this project.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's wonderful here in Glasgow.
Good, I'm glad. Thank you. Professor Sir Jeff Palmer, Scotland's first black professor. Important to say on a day like today. He's been working with Glasgow University as an advisor on the project. So Simon has called from Orpington and Valerie in Dulwich to carry on our conversation about who precisely is working in our national interest, in the national interest when it comes to Brexit. Simon, who is it?
Hello. Hi, Sheila. Yeah, nice to speak with you. I would say, first and foremost, the national interest is democracy, and anything outside of delivering on the result of the referendum is going to be hugely damaging for democracy. And I do think as well, Boris and his government, Boris Johnson and his government, they are the ones actually working from a mandate. That's the decision to give us the referendum, the result of the referendum, and Article 50, which the MPs voted for, saying that we'd leave with or without a deal. I think the most frightening thing, and it has to be against the national interest, is the quote-unquote national unity government, because that is being formed so that it doesn't actually have to go through an election. So that would be an unelected government trying to revert the result of our referendum. So I think that's really frightening. I think as well, Philip Hammond, him going over there, and I'm only just hearing this from your show, him going over and talking to the EU, well, he's working against us, because at the moment, whatever people think of Boris Johnson and whatever his motives are, his actions are that he's working towards a deal. And I thought Philip Hammond himself wanted a deal, and Boris Johnson did actually eventually vote for the deal that Philip Hammond backed.
Yes, Philip Hammond backed it 3 times. Stay with us, Simon. Valerie's called from Dulwich. You very much welcome Philip Hammond's involvement here, Valerie, his efforts.
Yes, Sheila, I do, because I see a no deal, if it comes about, being disastrous for Ireland. As you can hear, I'm Irish. I'm from a border county. And, you know, I think really we need to look at what we mean by democracy. There's a lot of talk about it, but, you know, 52 to 48% is clearly, as it's been said many times, it's not a decent level to show support. And even Nigel Farage said that before the referendum vote, that we'd need another vote if we had a 52-48 result. But, you know, what about democracy in Ireland? In the 1998 referendum, 71% in Northern Ireland and 94% in the Republic voted for a free border. And now we're facing an overturn of that democracy. That was really democratic, I would say. Whereas, you know, the figures are hugely different to what we've got here. And people keep talking about the good of the country. Well, what about Northern Ireland and the good of Northern Ireland? What's going to happen there? We're seeing violence starting up already with the IRA. You know, I think that's... You
can't apply all of that to Brexit, can you? A large part of that surely is to do with, A, it never fully went away, and B, the lack of a government there.
Well, you know, the border thing is just, it's a real example of a divided Ireland. And if there's a hard border or any kind of a border, it's going to cause that. It'll give the IRA ammunition to say, look, we want, you know, we've got something to focus on here. Mm-hmm. And the violence to the police, we saw last night on the news, how worried they are about the violence increasing if with a no-deal hard border Brexit.
Simon, do you want to respond to Valerie?
Yes. Hi, Valerie. I understand that you're worried about Northern Ireland. Valerie, it was a UK-wide referendum, and I'm not sure why you're getting concerns about the border or who's giving you those concerns, because there's already a border. There's a border for tax, VAT. There is a border. It's just not a hard border. And nobody's talking about a hard border or implementing one. I don't doubt Remainers are certainly talking it up, and that's giving people, I would say, a lot of unnecessary fear. So I'm sorry that people have been selling ghost train tickets on this issue. And I think as well, if you think of the head of the ports of Calais, when he was talking about there being delays, he was saying actually a lot of people are using this, as I say, to sell ghost train tickets. And he was saying I won't quote his words, but saying that absolute nonsense. And I would say the same thing applies to the Northern Irish border. let Boris Johnson and his government work with the EU and Northern Ireland to solve the Irish backstop issue so that we don't actually have to have one. You might be interested in reading the Prosperity Report backed by Nicky Morgan and Greg Hands, which goes into many, many ways that will solve this issue. So I would say that I'm sorry you're having this fear put into you. I don't know why you make the link between our vote and terrorists. Are you saying actually we should bow down to terrorism? Because I have Irish family, and I can say they are the strongest people I have ever met. They will not back down.
Look, go on, Valerie. Hang on, Simon.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying we've lived with no border, really. Easy travel between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. Ireland was becoming...
Okay, but that's not going to change, Valerie.
Sorry, it will
That's
change.
Not going to change. No, it won't change.
I don't know
Simon, let Valerie speak. Go on, Valerie.
I don't know what your solution is to having a boundary between the EU and Ireland, but there has to be some kind of a boundary. And the Unionists won't support the North Sea boundary. There has to be one somewhere. So it's pie in the sky to say that there's going to be no border and there'll be free travel, because there won't.
Sorry, Valerie, I don't think you got what I said here. I said that there is already a border.
Yeah,
you understand that there's already a border.
Yeah, but Simon, can I come in on this? Let me hang on, Simon. Let me come in on this. I think what Valerie is alluding to, and other people have alluded to it as well, is the fact that one of the great achievements of the Good Friday Agreement is that the issue of identity in Ireland, north and south, but particularly in the north of Ireland, the particularly of identity is deeply political. And some people are Irish, some people want to identify as Irish, some people want to identify as British, all within Northern Ireland I'm talking about at the moment. And the lifting of any need for a hard border in Northern Ireland allowed those who wish to be Irish to travel freely as Irish and not have to be engaged with the British state in any way, and those who wish to be British to operate as they always have in Northern Ireland, engaging with the British state, because there it is, right in front of them. And if you change the nature of that border, you change the nature of that process of identity, and there are risks in there for Northern Ireland for the very specific reasons that all of us know.
Okay, but who's been talking about restricting the movement of people on both sides of the border within Ireland? Because I haven't heard anybody talk about that. So
we're not talking about... Yeah, but we're not talking about restriction, is what Sheila said. It's just moving without having to engage with a border. You don't have to engage with a border at the present time. And it has had a massive impact on Ireland. It's so different.
In terms of peace and prosperity.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, thank you to both of you. I must leave it there because it's time to go to a break.